Confrontation at sea. How can you say confrontation at sea when you ended the last episode the way you did? Alright, segue time, I guess.
I see. So Lady Whiteley was taken away by that organization, along with all the missing children from the workhouses. Honestly, to be captured during her own rescue while trying to save another. She really does cause no end of trouble.
The great fire that broke out below St. Spira Church crested in its intensity as Akachi stood at the threshold, ready to rush back in to save Emily. Miss Whiteley!
Akachi! Wait!
Let go of me, Kobayashi! I need to save her!
But I can't! I can't let you leap into that blaze!
But Let go! Unhand me, Seiji! Dang, first name basis. He really wants to go.
I won't do it! Not even for you, Akachi!
No sooner had Kobayashi dragged Akachi back to the surface than the blaze began to quickly spread through the underground, enkindling even small fires on the surface and causing an uproar. Once the flames had abated, there were no bodies to be found or traces of the ritual that had taken place.
The residue samples taken from the site positively identify the substance burned by the cultists as a variety of the drug commonly known as crystal. In low dosages, it simply functions as a mild paralytic, with potential side effects including headaches and dehydration. In larger concentrations, however, it directly impacts the functions of the nervous system, impairing one's judgment and fear response. Its effects are different from those of elixir, which induces listlessness and hallucinations, but is no less dangerous.
Okay, so we ran into elixir in Watson's epilogue, and this is a little bit different. But it seems to be the same cult, so are they using, like, a variety of drugs?
I would expect the two of you to have been heavily exposed to the drug while you were in the underground passages. Do either of you feel any abnormal symptoms?
Akachi and Kobayashi indicated the negative with a weak shake of their heads.
I am glad to hear it. In that case, leave the rest to me and...
Is there really nothing else you want to say?
Akachi.
Don't misunderstand me, Akachi. Whatever time I might spend blaming you would be much better employed searching for Lady Emily. I don't have the luxury of focusing on you right now.
Dang. When even Pendleton don't got time to lecture your butt, you know, he's busy.
Then let us...
I will be fine, thank you.
Hey! I hadn't even said anything yet!
What do a couple of children like yourselves hope to accomplish here? You ought not overestimate your own ability. Other than the residue of the drug, no physical evidence was gleaned from the burnt-out underground. Even if the two of you did come forth to offer testimony of what you witnessed there, it would simply be dismissed as a wild tale spun by a couple of foreign youths.
So you're suggesting we ought just remain silent and do nothing?
I have made my stance quite clear, Akachi. Don't make me repeat myself. I have no need of your assistance. That is all. I cannot depend on someone so overwhelmed and incapacitated by his own sense of powerlessness.
Dang! Pendleton, you don't pull any punches!
I have taken the liberty of having Alicia prepare a guest room for the two of you. It is late. Both of you ought to get some rest.
I've said my piece, and now I leave. Having said thus, Pendleton excused himself, leaving the two alone in the room.
Hey, Akachi?
She chose to save that child without a moment's hesitation. And yet, I wavered, still chained to the past. But you're absolutely right, Kobayashi. Miss Whiteley is a woman of enormous strength. Akachi's voice was weak, his eyes downcast.
So you did find yourself thinking back to what happened back in Japan, then? And just like then, that child was ready to end it with a thrust of the knife. I thought you would.
I thought I had come to terms with what happened, that I had moved on, and yet the moment a similar situation presented itself, I froze. I have no regrets about the choice I made that day, yet this time, I found myself wavering. I had time enough for hesitation. I should have been right there beside her, saving that child. Yet what did I do?
Akachi bit his lip in frustration, his gaze still fixed toward the floor.
So even you find yourself beset by frustration every now and then, hmm? Still, this is no time to wallow in the pits of despair. If you ask me, I'd say you take what people say at face value too much. Pendleton may have told us he has no need of our help, of course, but he never once instructed us to do nothing.
Ah, Kobayashi, you're so clever.
Or are you planning on simply giving up and leaving Emily's rescue to him?
I couldn't possibly do that.
I thought as much. Well then, it seems our choice is made. Just dutifully listening to what others tell you isn't enough to capture the heart of the maiden you love.
You may well be right.
He actually admitted it! Kobayashi, you got him to admit it. Oh my gosh. The next morning. House Whiteley's head maid, Alicia, called for Pendleton with a look of bewilderment on her face.
You're saying Akachi and Kobayashi are nowhere to be found?
Yes, and I've looked everywhere in the mansion. Their beds and room are so tidy, it's as though they were never there.
I see. It seems our guests found themselves unable to stay put after all. Their consideration for their hosts is very characteristic of them, though.
I did find this on the floor beside the bed. Figured you should hold on to it.
Oh? They must have forgotten to take it when they slipped out. I would wager this is Kobayashi's.
Alicia handed what she had found to Pendleton.
Alicia, I shall be leaving the estate in your care for a time.
Of course. In return, I ask that you do bring Lady Emily back safe and sound.
I will.
What did he forget? Surely not his sword. With Alicia and the other maids to see him off, Pendleton departed the mansion. Actually, was it Kobayashi or Akachi's thing? It's Kobayashi's. What did Kobayashi leave behind? Okay, so not the sword. Meanwhile, elsewhere in London, Akachi and Kobayashi had made their way to the shore of the River Thames.
Kobayashi, do you recall the rumor about the ghost ship on the Thames? The one we heard about back at the dormitory?
The one that's supposed to ferry away the souls of children who misbehave, right?
Oh, so that is connected. Well, I guess there is a grain of truth in every tale. So that's connected to these cultists, and they take the children to Hong Kong on the ship, I guess. Interesting.
Consider for a moment. Does the proliferation of that story not sound like the perfect cover for transporting people by sea without arousing any suspicion? Especially the cries of children.
On its surface, it simply sounds like another urban legend. But if you consider that the children are entirely real, the picture begins to shift. Still, how do you plan on investigating the...
Kobayashi trailed off as his eyes were drawn to a slip of paper in Akachi's hands.
Is that a map? Where did you get it from?
The guard we took the keys from in the caverns beneath the church had it on him, and I simply helped myself.
Wow. I'm amazed that in the haze of the moment you thought to search his pockets.
My physical ability may have been significantly impaired, but my ability to reason remained intact. The area shown on this map, where children are loaded on ships for the journey by sea, is upstream on the River Thames. As you can see, there is a mark made over a certain port, and the detail with which the coastline has been rendered is rather noteworthy.
Kobayashi scanned the map of the riverfront.
Oh, I think I remember this place. Isn't that where we almost made landfall when we first arrived from Japan?
So it is. Though I learned sometime later that it is largely used as something of a scrapyard to moor decommissioned ships. Late at night, with the fog hanging heavy in the air, it would be nigh impossible to account for all of the ships entering or leaving port. The perfect place and time to take on cargo in secret, and leave port without anyone being the wiser.
So what are you planning to do? You didn't tell Pendleton about any of this, and I think I can hazard a guess as to what that means.
She was effectively captured in my place.
His voice betrayed the anguish he felt.
Emily was captured because I let go of her hand. It was foolish of me, and I hope never to repeat such a mistake. You were right in what you said yesterday, Kobayashi. Heeding the words of others alone will not be enough to aid me in saving her.
Wow. I never thought I'd hear a real heartfelt admission from someone as stern as you.
I have ended up dragging you into all this, Kobayashi, and for that...
Let's be clear. You've been dragging me into strange business for years now. Nothing new there. And seeing as I'm in the thick of all this, I ask that you let me see and be a part of it to the very end.
Thank you. Very much.
Late was the toll of the night, and a thick fog blanketed the port. Under cover of mist and darkness, Akachi and Kobayashi made their way to the port upon the riverfront, guided by the map. I love that we're completely separated from Emily right now. We really have no idea where she is or what's going on. We're just focusing on these two boys. Nearby, several decommissioned ships bobbed at their moorings. The figures of 4 or 5 suspicious-looking men could be seen even in the dim light. All of them seemed attentive, clearly on watch for something.
Blast. I thought one of those sentries had a familiar look about him.
Kobayashi scowled, still pressing his face to the telescope as he scanned the docks.
It's the same man who threw me into the cell back in the underground. Not a gentle fellow, that one. He was awful to Emily, too.
If not for the crystal, I would have liked to give him a more thorough working over for his behavior.
Akachi's fist tightened around the sheath of his katana.
Well, given their number and their vigilance, it's a safe bet that they really do traffic children here. All right, here's the plan, Akachi.
Kobayashi spoke, sliding his slingshot from his target and giving its band a firm tug.
I shall employ fireworks to distract them, and while their attention is diverted, you will take advantage of that opening to make for the riverfront and see if Emily is safe.
But once their attention has been roused, that will make them all the more vigilant.
Perhaps, but with the fog as thick as it is, they'll not be able to see too far. You should be able to sneak past them without trouble. Besides, even I can tell you're worried out of your mind for her.
Very well, then.
But don't take too long, you hear? I can only keep these miscreants occupied for so long.
Before the last word had left his mouth, Kobayashi had loosed his slingshot's pouch, sending one of his firecrackers sailing toward the other side of the port. A series of loud snapping noises echoed through the quiet night air.
What was that? Come on, let's check it out.
The guards hurried off in the direction from which the sounds had come.
Go on! Here's your chance!
Understood.
There the two of them parted ways, hurrying out into the fog. Hey, it's our girl, back in a cell. This fog is so heavy. I can't make out a thing outside. I thought I heard one of the guards shouting something, but it's all gone quiet now. Many cages were lined up nearby, children held captive in each, but I heard not a thing from any of them. Not a cry of anger, not even a quiet sob. No doubt something must have been done to stop them from making any noise. If I don't act quickly, I shall end up sharing the very predicament from which I hope to save these children. Filled with a growing sense of unease, I found my hands curled around the bars of my cage more tightly with each passing minute. But then, something began to happen.
You! Ah!
What in the world? I heard a short scream, accented with pain and panic, then the sound of something hitting the floor. What's that? Is someone there? I tried to peer outside, but the fog obscured all but the nearest sights. Cautiousness got the better of me, however, and I released my grip on the cell's bars. But just as I did... Wait! Nah? The face was indeed Akachi's, but his voice had an edge of panic to it that seemed very unlike him. As I heard the footsteps approach, I felt someone reach out and grab my hand. A warm hand. It was the very hand whose grasp I had let fall away in the caverns beneath the church. Akachi!
Miss Whiteley! Are you all right?
His face and hair, usually beautiful and clean, both showed a light dusting of dirt, and his breaths came heavy. I could only begin to imagine the peril he had put himself in to come so far for my sake. I felt so humbled in that moment that I could scarce bring my gaze to meet his. I'm fine. Perfectly all right. No injuries to speak of. I tried to quiet the quavering in my voice as best I could, so as not to worry him any more than I must already have done. I'm so sorry, Akachi. All I've done is cause trouble for you. I'm so sorry.
I can't claim to have not anticipated this, but you really do try to put forth a stalwart front even in such circumstances.
What? I found myself finally looking up at him. Akachi, meanwhile, gazed down at me, a bittersweet smile playing at his own lips. Yet, despite that, the light within his eyes remained soft and kind. Seeing him there, with that look upon his face, I felt at last as though all the tension that had wound tightly within my frame began to unspool, and the more it did, the more the tears threatened to come. Uh-oh, I was wondering when the crying was going to start.
You think this? A stalwart front?
His gentle voice and the quiet clarity of his eyes transfixed me there, unable to move. I did not wish to cause for him any more trouble than that which presently faced us both, and more, I did not wish him to think me as pitiful as I felt in truth. And yet my tears would not cease. My only desire was to cling to his outstretched hand.
I'm so sorry.
All I could muster was apology upon apology, head turned downward.
You needn't apologize to me. I have never met a woman with courage as great as yours, or such a surfeit of kind-heartedness.
Akachi spoke quietly, caressing my cheek. His touch was as the softest silk upon my face.
Please, do not beg forgiveness with so pitiable an expression. You've done nothing for which you need apologize. So I entreat you, please, do not blame yourself.
Akachi. I found myself then worried that no matter how I tried to conceal them, my tear-stained cheeks and the trembling in my voice would betray to him the fear and helplessness that struck at my heart. However...
Set your doubts and apprehensions aside. It's going to be all right now.
His voice, like a sunbeam, pierced the gloom that had enveloped me.
I want to put your heart at ease. I want to regard you with kindness. And beyond even those, I wish to make you smile as well. More than anything.
Akachi gently drew me closer to him. His voice, his eyes, his hands, ensconced in such reassuring warmth, my fears began slowly to fall away.
In this present time, if I am able to grant you any sense of comfort or relief,
His face was now mere inches from mine, the whole aspect of him having taken on an incredible compassion. Though my hair had become matted in the time since I had last seen him, he brushed it from my face without seeming to pay it any mind, planting a soft kiss on my head. Drat, I was hoping for an actual kiss, but this is still freaking adorable. The kiss sound still makes me laugh. Oh, so funny. The iron bars of the cage still separated us. Himself free while I remained a captive. I know, I'm like, this is very sweet, but can you let me out first? Poor Kobayashi is like slinging firecrackers left, right, and center. Like, hurry it up, because, you know, I can't keep them distracted forever. And he's like, hold on, I gotta woo my girl quick. Give me a second. Aw, yay, we get a CG. But our intertwined fingers and his lips pressed against my forehead made me feel as though whatever now faced us, we could overcome it. With Akachi here, the cold uncertainty has all melted away. He caressed me gently and kindly, as though to reassure me that the touch from which I had broken away was once again here for me. I could feel the tightness in my own throat as well, and the occasional shiver and shudder of my body. I was overwhelmed with happiness, that he had thought so much of me, that he was even now trying to do his utmost for my sake. Tears streamed down my cheeks once more, but this time they flowed not from the cold well of uncertainty, but from the font of joy. Miss Whiteley? Hold on, I gotta see this. Yeah, okay, I'm like, are they actually holding hands? They are. So cute. He peered into my eyes, and only then, taking stock of myself, did I register the embarrassment of being seen with tears spilling down my face. I see you're not going to flush red and step away from me today. Even in my happiness, I found myself saying something less than endearing in spite of myself. Not today. Though I can only imagine how unsightly my face must look at the moment. What? A cursory examination revealed that his face did, in fact, have a reddish look about it. Be that as it may, however, I want to be by your side, no matter how shameless that may make me appear. I don't think you're shameless at all. Aww. I couldn't help but smile as he grew embarrassed at the realization of his own words. I'm so happy you're here with me. Thank you, Akachi. I wished to be honest, to tell him how I truly felt, but the stronger my feelings burned, the more I was overcome by them, rendering me unable to continue. The thanks owed are my own. I've yet to repay even half of the debt I owe you. Debts for even things intangible, like the joy knowing you has brought me. I apologize for having to leave you captive, but I must ask you to wait a short while longer. Oh, that's why I'm not out of here. Okay. Alright, you want to do the whole capture the big bad guy thing. I get it. This is just to reassure her that you're nearby and you love her. Don't be scared. I will save you. That is a promise. So please, believe in me. Akachi softly caressed my cheek, still moist with tears. He remained by my side as long as he possibly could, up to the moment we heard the sound of the guards in the far distance. Wow. What a boy. Dang, so all of that was just so that you could make sure she was okay and be like, I love you. It's okay. Don't be scared, I'm nearby. Ugh. Whew. My heart is full.
Are you alright, Akachi?
I am. What about you, Kobayashi?
Everything went as planned. The fog made it all the easier for me. Those fools rely on their eyes overmuch.
After leaving Emily's side, Akachi had crept back to reunite with Kobayashi.
Was Emily safe?
For now. We need to rescue her as soon as possible.
Don't be too hasty now. We're up against a ship. And whatever or whoever is within. You never did learn to swim, did you? You'll be in a real jam if some thug tosses you overboard.
I simply lack formal training. It's not that I'd be unable to do it if pressed. Still, we can't exactly swim aboard, or there's a good chance we'd be spotted by the guards the moment we hauled our waterlogged selves up onto the deck.
How do you intend to board the ship undetected, then? Shall we stow away in the cargo? Oh! Speaking of cargo, While I was giving that band of guards the slip, I passed by an area full of expensive-looking furniture. Sofas, tables, and the like. It seems they're planning to transport the lot of it to Hong Kong, along with the children.
Sofas and tables, you say? Akachi paused a moment, the wheels in his mind spinning. Kobayashi, take me there.
Sure, but you aren't...
We've no time to lose. Let us make haste.
Oh! Akachi, wait!
A single motor-driven ship cut across the water, ferrying within it Emily and many children. The vibrations of the engine and the rhythmic churn of the waves beneath caused the vessel to occasionally pitch and sway.
Can't really get used to boats. I hope the rocking eases up soon.
But just as the nauseous-looking guard was about to leave the hold...
Ah!
He let out a short cry, then collapsed, knocked unconscious by a fierce blow to the back of the head. Unfortunately for you, there is nowhere on board any ship you can flee to escape seasickness. Standing over the man's prone body, Akachi returned his katana to his side.
Being cramped up like that for so long, I'd be at a loss to point to a place in my body that doesn't hurt. Granted, your plan worked, but I wasn't expecting to contort myself into the shape of a chair. Was that, too, some form of training?
I admit, none of the training I have ever undertaken prepared me to conceal myself within a sofa. Akachi and Kobayashi locked the guard inside the hold, then began making their way deeper into the ship's interior. The corridors were filled with many guards, and progress was slow as the two plotted a careful course to avoid catching their attention.
There are so many guards, it feels like we've barely made any progress. Still, this ship is far more posh than the one we came to England aboard.
Oh ho, is that jealousy I hear?
No, just a personal observation. Right now, my main priority is to find whoever is in charge of the ship and apprehend them. If we simply let the ship continue on its merry way, we'll like to find ourselves in some Hong Kong harbor.
Yes, I am keenly aware of that, Kobayashi. Their careful prowling eventually led the two to the ship's upper deck, where the thick fog billowed around them. However, the cover that shielded them from watchful eyes was even now dissipating, pushed away by the sea breeze.
Hey, Akachi!
Is that... The first thing to catch Akachi and Kobayashi's eyes was a group of children bound in ties splayed out on the deck.
Hey! Are you all right?
They seem to be merely unconscious. But what are they doing up here?
A simple question with a simple answer. They are here to serve as an effective lure for any bleeding hearts like yourselves who might think to intrude.
Akachi sensed a rapid movement from behind. In an instant, he had drawn his blade and dealt a turning slash. The object split clean in twain, clattering to the deck.
That's...
Dear me, there goes my favorite tiger mask. That wasn't very kind of you.
Wait, were you... Were you... Porlock, were you Dehar in disguise? No way.
Still, I was thinking it might be time for a new mask anyway. What do you think would endear me to the children? Father Christmas, perhaps?
At the sight of the stranger, both Akachi and Kobayashi brought their weapons to the ready. His eyes flickered icily in the darkness of the night.
Come now, is there any need for such hostility? I haven't done anything to you. Might I not at least ask that you introduce yourselves before you brandish your arms at me? A true gentleman respects his elders.
Okay, so Dehar wasn't the man in the black cloak. Porlock was the... I got Porlock and Dehar mixed up. So Dehar did not have the tiger mask. Porlock did. Gotcha. Okay. My initial theory was wrong about that, then. Okay. I'm afraid I've no desire to make introductions with loathsome cretins like yourself.
My. That's a dreadfully mean-spirited thing to say to someone you've only just met. I thought you Japanese valued politeness above all else, Samurai-kun.
So you know who we are?
But of course, Dehar over there is one of my pawns after all. Pawn? Master Porlock, I am your loyal servant, and... Enough out of you. It grates on me when people ramble on and on about their honor or their loyalty, just to make themselves look good. Don't esteem yourself too highly for carrying out such a simple task. Any two-bit hoodwinker could have rounded up these children.
He spoke with an air of disinterest, but his words were biting, envenomed.
And while I'm dwelling on it, I also hate those who cause trouble for me. So if you two would rather not incur my wrath, I suggest you give yourselves up.
Why should we care if you hate us? We didn't come here to win your approval!
And if we refuse?
I kill them, one at a time.
At his words, Porlock's subordinates arrayed behind him leveled their rifles at Akachi and Kobayashi.
For every futile gesture of resistance you make, one of them dies. Then they shall throw the body into the sea for good measure. Or perhaps it ought to be two. There are two of you, after all.
You son of a...
If you refuse to give yourselves up, the loss of these innocent children's lives shan't be on my hands. Are we perfectly clear? Just think. You came all this way, went through all this trouble to save them. Wouldn't it be simply tragic to see their little lives pour through your helpless fingers like sand?
It would indeed. However...
We cannot allow ourselves to be captured here!
In an instant, the two had raised their weapons to the ready and struck without a moment's hesitation. Porlock subordinate A. Lovely.
Ah! These bastards!
The pellets loose from Kobayashi's slingshot stopped Porlock's thugs in their tracks. Capitalizing on the opening, Akachi immediately narrowed the gap between himself and Porlock, aiming the trajectory of his cut squarely at Porlock's neck. Dang, he's just gonna cut his neck off. However, his blade stopped short, hovering a hair's breadth from Porlock's throat.
Impressive. I see that even as we conversed you were able to scan the environs. If only your ears were as sharp as your eyes.
A cruel grin twisted its way across Porlock's face as he raised the pistol in his hand.
I'm going to shoot the first one myself, you know.
He pointed the gun at one of the bound children.
It brings me no joy to do this, I assure you. Such a waste to go discarding tools before you've even had the chance to use them, to say nothing of the ill-spent ammunition. In spite of the contempt with which you surely regard me, I have no particular interest in spilling any more blood than is necessary. But worry not. Unlike a certain other right-hand man, I make it my practice to offer mercy even to those who oppose me. Beyond the sparing of life, I'm also prepared to offer opportunities to those with the requisite potential.
Are you referring to Morin?
So, what shall it be? You don't look like the cold-hearted sort who would stand by and see children perish.
You're just a good-for-nothing coward, using those weaker than you as a shield while you...
Very well.
Akachi?
In return, I ask that you take the children back inside.
You've more kindness about you than your appearance would suggest, Samurai-kun. Still, if you're trying to strike a bargain with me, I'll need convincing that you mean to honor your end of the deal. For example, casting your weapon away.
Akachi, no! That katana is...
Kobayashi's words died in the night air as Akachi's sword and sheath both clattered to the deck. Are you satisfied? Akachi's expression remained calm and unflinching, but his clenched fist could be clearly seen in the polished surface of his blade. After being relieved of their weapons, Akachi and Kobayashi were summarily thrown into a holding cell by Porlock and his subordinates. However, what is the meaning of this?
There's no need for such a scowl. How am I supposed to enjoy this glass of port with your dreadful eyes glowering at me?
Not long after, Akachi had been summoned by Porlock and now stood face to face with him.
Fancy a drink yourself? It has a bit more punch than regular wine, but it won't leave you wanting.
I shall abstain.
I see you're every bit as needlessly stiff as you look.
Brushing aside Akachi's rejection, Porlock quaffed the last of the wine in his glass.
I meant exactly what I said earlier, you know. I'm inviting you to take up work as my associate. I'm a busy man, you see, gathering personnel, disseminating information through the organization by way of ciphers. And now, I've been given the charge of founding a new base for Spellbound abroad. You seem rather too serious for your own good, but there's no denying your considerable ability. That you take great responsibility in your work is well and good, too.
I'll pass.
Won't you reconsider? You've been ever so useful to me, such that I've come to think quite highly of you.
Useful? What are you talking about?
Did the night air up on deck dull your hearing? Dehar is one of my pawns. In fact, it was on my order that he first approached you. You and your friend were struggling mightily for young men of such obvious skill, which made it all the easier for his deception to take hold. A little kindness and the birds eat right from the hand. And I must commend your exemplary work gathering information on the traitors within our organization. We could not have nursed a finer hunting hound.
Then the reason all the suspects we investigated disappeared soon after we filed our reports was...
Because we disposed of them naturally. Well, I say we, but the killings were the work of Spellbound's elites, trained in their grisly trade from childhood. You're sharp enough that I needn't spell this out, I'm sure, but just to humor myself, that makes the two of you accomplices in their murders.
You deceived us.
And you have none but yourselves to blame for swallowing it whole. Gullibility and naivete are risks those like you can ill afford.
Porlock flashed him a derisive grin.
Let me ask you this, Samurai-kun. Does this country really seem to you such a kind-hearted place? I can assure you it's not. Are you sure those spectacles of yours aren't tinted a rosen hue? Or are you simply so desperate for a place to call home that you're willing to ignore the truth as it parades before your eyes? I had figured as much. Unfortunately for you, kindness keeps no abode in this country. Dreaming it might be so is a waste of your time.
For a resident and citizen, you seem to hold a poor opinion of your homeland.
Poor is putting it lightly. I'd cheer to see it all burn to the ground, really. You saw the children from the workhouses, didn't you? Like sacks of bones, that lot. After the Poor Law was introduced with the intent to help the poor and destitute, England began to be seen as a welfare state. But that impression is only skin deep. The policies being pushed by this nation force those sound enough of body to work, and those who can't are thrown into what is, for all intents and purposes, a prison. The unpleasant truth is that as much as this nation loves to trumpet its high standard of living, all it has done is further enable the strong to live in comfort, while making it harder for the weak to live at all. You understand of whom I speak when I refer to the weak, do you not? The poor, the oppressed, outsiders, those whom good society would be more comfortable without. People just like yourselves.
At the word weak, Akachi clenched his fists all the more tightly.
I think it quite natural for those hemmed in on every side by the narrow prospects to dream of a more open world. A freer world. Don't you? I yearn for that freedom. I yearn for a place where my future is not foreordained by my birth, my social standing, or the whims of others. That is why I number myself with the members of this organization. You desire the very same, do you not? For those around you to recognize your ability. Do you not tire of people looking at you and seeing a mere foreigner, where they ought to see a man of skill and diligence? Have you never seethed in anger as the witless fools around you are lauded for accomplishments you have far outstripped?
You're right. I cannot deny that my experiences in England are exactly as you have described.
If you have craved a place to belong, a place where your merit will be accorded its due reward, then what's to stop you? Join up with me and put such talents as you have to better use.
Is that all you wish to say to me?
Akachi addressed Porlock flatly, looking him squarely in the eye.
Perhaps you speak truly. By the standards of this country, I am one of the weak, the outsiders. However, our outlook diverges in this, that I harbor no intention of trying to escape my birth, my lot in life, or the company of others. None whatsoever. Your way will never be mine. Never!
Porlock stared at Akachi, eyes narrowing.
Really now? Do you think so little of the kindness I have shown in extending this offer to an Easterner like you?
I have no need of kindness from a man who views others as little more than tools to be employed for his purpose, nor would I wish for it.
You know, it just occurred to me, Samurai-kun. You went to all the trouble to stow aboard this ship, unbeknownst to us, to rescue those children, did you not? A noble goal, but is that really the extent of it?
What are you getting at?
Nothing much. I just find myself truly moved that you would go to such lengths to save all these children, such bright futures ahead for all of them. For a moment, I thought you might have a more personal reason driving you, you see. In any case, I shall await a more earnest answer when next I extend my offer, Samurai-kun. Perhaps then you shall join me in a glass of port as well.
I shall have to decline.
Unease nodded Akachi as he observed Porlock's foreboding smile. He knows.